Hello, my name is Michael Trowbridge, and I have been tasked with implementing a mechanic designed by one of my peers in this tile-based game project. The mechanic I've introduced is called the buddy system. The mechanic was originally designed uh, by Liam Tomlin, and he created the system to give the player two pawns to work with to get through his level. Now, I mix that with my MineSweeper because the main mechanic of my mine is it's really impossible to figure out where a mine is unless you have two bits of information. So with the buddy, he can tell you where some of them are, like they help each other out on figuring out where the mine are. So, just like in Minesweeper, you have a grid of mines. The player doesn't know where it is. But with the buddy system, you're able to press Q and swap players. Now, we need to get a small sense of direction here. Um, but yeah, the player will use these different pawns, and it has audio cues among other cues to let you know, like the nose changes. That was again Liam's original design. I also made them look slightly different, just so you know where they are. But I designed the level particularly in a way with all the mines, allowing both pawns um, to help each other. Otherwise, one pawn could just get to the very end. But I made sure that no mine would need a just one player by itself. Now, my mines don't go off until they're stepped off of, so let's see how far I can get before I have to step that guy off of a mine. There's one right there, there's one right there. Two. Oh, that has to be left and right. This has to be left and right, so this guy's good. Three, that's dangerous. Yep. See, without the other pawn here, this guy is unable to move forward. Oh, well, actually, this right here. Okay. Yeah, here we go. It's clearly mine here, mine here. I wasn't able to make it this far by pure chance. Wait a minute, I didn't mean to step on that. Either way. Death. So, they don't both have to make it, only one of them has to make it over. But this, at least this spot right here, shows that only one of them, or you need both of them to get past this spot, and still I step on mines. But honestly, that is the hardest part of designing these levels is to make sure that they have to help each other out to get past this. I had a series of zeros here, which is why I think he made it all the way. But I don't think he would get past this spot without the help of the buddy. And even some of my other playtests, this buddy, I try to get this buddy all the way to the exit, but he gets stuck about here because he doesn't have any more help. But either way, he gets the red shirt or the blue shirt to the finish line. So as long as one of them makes it, that's all that matters. But let's hop into the code. Let's see. All that was needed to be updated was the player pawn and the tile map. Alright, well actually let's start with the tile map. Because this is actually what spawns the player. The event begin play to set the camera. That's still the same as before. But the first thing we have here is an array that cycles through both spawn tiles, because you need 2 spawn tiles to spawn 2 different people. Now originally I had a problem with set spawn tile. It linked straight over to player spawn tile, which was not an array at the time, and so I had to change this a little bit. Now the set spawn tile option here, if I click on this and then press this button, it still technically works, but only for the first player. I didn't want that to be the set spawn, because when it flip-flopped back and forth, it gave me a few errors, unable to comply with that. So right now it is just for the first player. But how Liam had it set up is you actually select the tile map in the outliner, and let me find it. There we are. And we have this new player spawn tile array, and it is able to be it's instance editable. So you can select first player and then second player using just these eyedroppers, which makes it slightly more easy, at least in our opinion. But oh, yeah, okay. Back to the graph of timeline. So anyways, so you have these spawn tile arrays. The for each loop will set your current spawn and the index for each one of those arrays. And if it is the first one in the array, then it creates the first player. If it is not the first one, then it creates the second player. Now the first player is the spawn player is just like it was in the original, except current spawn is placed into the invalid and get actor location. It is also placed here in the set after casting the player pawn and setting the can enter for the target, current player for the target, and the target for setting the player object type to player. The only thing that was actually added was the player count. And that is important later in player pawn to know which player is which pawn is the original and which one is the quote buddy. And you plug in the current index into player count, and I'll show you that As for spawn player 2, you have to start with this one with a spawn actor pawn. And one of the really difficult things to figure out was the player count, like I just mentioned from up here, needs to be set as a set on spawn or something. Here, actually, let me go to it. It is player count. Yeah. So no, don't change it. So this one, expose on spawn. You have to make sure that is selected on player count for it to pop up here, so you can put your current index. Missing this one small node breaks everything in this player 2. He spawns, but he does not. He's not controllable. You also plug in your spawn location. And let me see. Specifically, after you split this this node into spawn transform location. Anyways, after it spawns the pawn, it asks if it's valid with the current spawn, which is, it'll tell you if you do not have a spawn for that player. But you'll set the actor location. Actually, most of this portion is the same as above. It's valid. Make sure the spawn is correct. Make sure your current spawn is plugged into these separate items. I'm not sure what that is. Did I unplug something? No. Okay, well, clean up. Set rotation. You're going to cast a player pawn. It's going to give you this note because it thinks you just did it up above, but ignore it. You're going to set current spawn again for all these items. But what you don't do is set the player count, because your index that you took earlier does that for you. But yeah, and that is really all there is for the tile map. And that's, again, just a spawn. But the player pawn, I already mentioned player count. But if we start here in begin play, this is going to make sure that you don't have two widgets. It takes your player count, make sure that it's 0. If it's true, it creates the widget. If not, then it skips creating the widget. And I didn't change anything in the widget itself. That's all the same. But the first thing that comes through at the end of the creating the widget and the end of that branch up there, it goes into another branch. If the player count is 0, then we're going to change the chest piece of that player to match its color, to give it a blue color. And then if it's 1, it's going to give it a red color on its chest. It continues, and this is where it allows the player to swap bodies. It gets all the actors of the player pawn class, goes through a for each loop, and the array element. It comes down here first to make sure it is not the same as the player count you're on, so that technically you have to go to the other item in the array. As long as that is not true, then it sets that. So 0 is the player, and then 1 is your buddy. So just names. But then we had to do another input action. Under game settings, you go and add Q, and I named it character swap. And when character swap is pressed, when Q is pressed, possess. Now to possess, you have to pull out buddy and pull off of its pin to actually get this possess function. The function does not exist if you right click and try and find it. That was a little more difficult to figure out. But Liam's video helped out a lot. He didn't mention this by name, but you know, scrolling back through, you can see Buddy, and you figure it out from there. But then you get your player controller, and that's the target in the pawn of Buddy. And as soon as you do this, it actually swaps their name. So Buddy is now 0 in the array, and you, the player, are 1. Let's see. After it possesses, it's going to do this set view target with blend. Honestly, the camera doesn't move, but the target is your player controller, which is your current tile, and its target on the tile map. And the tile map's target of the camera actor. Like I said, though, my camera actor doesn't really move, but this still allows the player controller to be set if you wanted to. But anyways, also off of Buddy, I'm going to get the actor location and play a sound on your Buddy. Mine's like this futuristic click. I'm not sure if you heard it earlier, but it's this stupid click, like echoey click. Then also from Buddy, we're going to target the nose and to change it to green so that the player knows that that is now the controller, or the pawn that he's controlling. And we're going to target his chest to spawn a emitter. Mine's a tiny little explosive smoky thing. I just found one online and decided to use it. But after it does the emitter, it's going to actually change the nose, and it's going to pull the nose off of the current player we're playing, or the pawn we're playing as, and change it to white, which is the same color as most of his body. So it blends in and makes it look like a static. Like, okay, I'm not touching that anymore. Let's see, what else did we do? Nope, 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 nope. Nope. Yeah, I believe that is it for player pawn. Again, the main thing about the mixing of the buddy system with the MineSweeper is mainly how you design the mine layout. Because if you don't design it in a way that the two pawns help each other out, then it's almost useless. Now, they can still be on the same path. They don't have to be split up like how I have them here. Because you can use things like I showed earlier, that if one player, or if the pawn steps on a mine, if there were ever have to be any guessing, which I try and avoid, if there was any guessing, one of your pawns can be sacrificed just to reach the goal. But I prefer this way to where they have to help each other out by standing on either side of where they think a mine may be to reveal where the mine's location actually is. Like this one right here. One pawn can spawn right here. It's going to tell them 2. But you don't know if it's this one, or this one. But this guy's coming through here, and he's got some zeros over here, so he's clearing out over here. He stands here, and it's going to show 1. And this one has a 2. Steps here, it shows a 0, so it has to be this one. He's going to 0 here, steps up 1 more, because he's got a 0. He's going to clear out everything around it. It says 3. That's going to give this guy a lot of information. A 3, I mean, it has to be follow all of them. So he's able to clear out all those. But up to the player on how they get through it. Like I said, you can guess. I don't like guessing, but technically with one pawn, you could guess your way all the way to the end. So actually, I should change it to where you need both pawns to win. That would alleviate the need for guessing. But we'll see. But either way, that is my mechanic mixed with Liam's. Awesome mechanic, and he did it in a very, very simple way. I would have been very convoluted in trying to do that, but he made it really easily.